What's something that happened on a first date that made you decide against a second date?
Experience 1. He used his pocket knife to cut me a slice of cake and later scraped some dirt clumps off of his shoe with the same knife. I asked him if he ever cleaned his knife, and he replied,
No, why?
He also confessed that he was madly in love with me the same day. We had just met. Experience 2. Met a girl at a friend's party. We were both in our mid-20s. Ended up spending 3 hours talking, and she was so funny, charming, gorgeous, and carefree. I asked her out and got a wonderful
I would love to.
from her. I show up about 4 days later at the restaurant she picked, one within walking distance of her place. She arrived about 5 minutes later.
Nice place.
I say, as I get her chair for her.
Since it's so close, do you eat here often?
She scowls and responds.
You know, you ask too many freaking questions.
I was floored. Everything continued downhill from there. Within about 20 minutes, she just got up and left. I felt as if she had failed to tell me the other night that she had an evil twin, and that's who showed up this evening. Later, when I ran into my buddy, I asked what the heck was up.
Oh yeah,
He said,
she's a piece of work until she gets a few drinks in her. Then she's adorable.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, buddy. Experience 3. One was the time I took this girl to dinner, and she could not stop staring at our waiter. I'll grant her one thing, I'm a guy and can admit this guy was probably totally hot for anyone who prefers men. Square-jawed and muscled college athlete type. I get it. But I didn't appreciate that she literally craned her neck every time the kitchen door swung open to see if he was walking out. Eventually, I gave her enough cash to pay for my part of the meal, told her I'd noticed, as though I couldn't have, suggested to her that she could get his contact info when she paid the bill and left. Edit, thanks for the awards, everyone. This was a first date I hadn't thought about in decades, and now I get awards for it at least. Cheers, everyone, and may all your first dates go more smoothly. Experience 4. He got us pulled over, the car was searched, and he had a brick of coke in the trunk. I almost got arrested. He finally vouched this was a blind date and I was innocent. Experience 5. I picked her up and she asked me if we could stop by her mom's house so she could run in and grab something. I said sure. Made the stop. She went inside. 5 minutes later, she came out hustling towards the car with a car seat and her mom chasing after her yelling. She opens the car door and throws the car seat, which I now see has a baby in it, and starts yelling at me to drive. I freaked and just turned my car off and took the keys out of the ignition. Her mom called the cops, and they came and questioned all of us for a good while. Turns out she had lost custody due to drug use and was trying to use me as a way to get her kid back. We never made it to dinner, and I just went home after the cops left. Experience 6. Went to dinner with a girl who I'd been crushing on for quite some time. It seemed to be going well, and we ended up back at her place, watching a movie or something. Out of nowhere, her boyfriend, of whom I was not aware, came back from out of town and stopped in unexpectedly. He and I had a super awkward conversation for a few minutes, and then the two of them disappeared into another room for a minute or two. She came back and said something to the effect of, "I don't have a place for you." I'm sorry. I just kind of got in my car and drove home, with one of the strangest feelings that I'd ever felt. At some point, a few minutes into the journey, I couldn't contain myself and busted out laughing. Experience 7. The guy told me he would still be together with his kid's mom if she had apologized for what she did wrong. Out of curiosity, I asked what she did wrong. Was expecting something like she cheated, You know, something that actually needed apologizing for? Nope. Apparently, she kept nagging one day and wouldn't shut up, so he tied her to a computer chair and went out for 3 hours and left her there. I said it didn't sound like she was the one who needed to apologize and left. Experience 8. 2 times. Farmer dude, showing my age, added me on MySpace. Chatted a while. I can appreciate a country boy. Seemed pleasant. Wanted to meet at McDonald's. Cool, I'm not hard to please, let's get some Big Macs and chat. We talked for about 10 minutes and clearly, it wasn't going to work. He was almost completely silent. Wouldn't ask questions, wouldn't eat. Just sat there. I told him it was nice to meet him, but I had to get home. Later that night I got about 20 messages telling me how he was into BDSM and wanted me to come over and puke that Mac sauce all over his balls. Yeah, that's a block. Counting Crows dude, met the guy on a Counting Crows online forum, LMAO again, showing my age, and he happened to live half an hour away. Cool, let's grab drinks at local bar and see where it goes. I get there, can't find him anywhere, figured I was stood up. Then the lights dimmed, and he walked out on stage, drunk as hell, slurring every other word / proceeded to play round here and stopped halfway through to vomit on himself. Now I can never hear that song without cracking up. Maria came from Nashville with a suitcase, just throws up everywhere. Odd that both instances involved puking to some degree. Experience 9. He took it out. And I don't mean this in a funny, unexpected Seinfeld kind of way, although I suppose it is that. I mean, he leaned across the table and whispered,
I'm out.
I said,
Excuse me?
for some reason, my first thought was out of the closet. He said,
Out, under the table. Look under the table.
and, like an idiot, I looked. Then he said,
That's what you do to me.
I said,
This is what you do to me.
and I left. I'm a people pleaser, so, to this day, I'm proud of myself for walking away in the middle of dinner. Experience 10. I met this girl on the apps, and we were talking, and she invited me over hours after matching. Alright, sure, things are alright through text. Her mom is there and is effed up, like mixing painkillers and alcohol effed up. She's at the table just mumbling and dozing off and asking me effed up stuff. Then her sister and her boyfriend are there and they're drunk and having a screaming match fight while we're all just talking and hanging out at the table. She seemed more normal than the other 3, and most of the time she was just talking about her daughter, and she's older, about 9 or 10, and is complaining about how she lives in another state and she's never had custody of her, and complaining how we lived in a screwed up state that always gives custody to the fathers. This is a lie. I live in Colorado, and I never met any divorced dads with full custody unless the mom straight up left and even lived with my mom after my parents divorced, when I would have been better off with my dad. So, I leave, and she asks me about a second date, and I tell her sorry to be blunt, but that was a ish-how and I was very uncomfortable, and I don't think we'll align. She goes off on me and how everyone has a crazy mom, it's normal, and how drunk people fight, it's what they do, and how I sound like CPS, and that I was a freaking weirdo, and started hurling insults at me, and then said I should have disclosed my medical condition. I have no clue what she was talking about. It didn't need to be like that. I would have picked her up, taken her to dinner and a movie or a walk or literally anything, but no, she straight up told me to come to her house with her drugged up mom, drunk sister and BF with zero warning. Experience 11. This story is always fun to tell. Basically, we got back to her place after dinner and were getting slightly freaky on the couch. As things started escalating, she pulled out a giant glass jar, like the ones with the finger loop thing that pirates put rum in, half full of a clear liquid. My idiot self asked her if it was moonshine or vodka or something. She then proceeded to explain to me that it's pure GHB and that she has a fetish about getting drugged off of it before having intercourse, and she said that with a completely serious face. For those of you who don't know, GHB is a date R-word drug. She then went to the restroom and I noped out of there so fast that I practically levitated off the couch. Never spoke to her again. Experience 12. Very recent, asked when I would get a real career. I love what I do. I'm a union stagehand in a major entertainment city. I have been in my industry for over 20 years, toured the country, toured the world, and made a comfortable living. Yeah, no. That's pretty demeaning and I'm out. Experience 13. 1. He tried to force a kiss. 2. He tried to get me to agree to marry him the next week. No, he wasn't an immigrant. 3. He said women were stupid and would believe anything he told them. I am a woman. 4. He said it was okay to drown puppies. It was actually humane. 5. He swore that it was impossible to get AIDS if you were straight. Found out a week later that he knew the whole time he was HIV positive. That's just some of them. Edit to add. Y'all have me laughing here. No, not all the same guys. These are various different men throughout my lifetime and in no particular order. I was writing them down as they came to mind. Can't believe I nearly forgot the one on number 5. Scariest of them all. He tried way too hard to get me to go home with him. Glad common sense won the day. I was 16, he was 18. Experience 14. He referred to every woman as a cunt, and we aren't in a country where that is common and harmless. His ex was a cunt, his aunt was a cunt, some random author he was telling me about for some reason was a cunt, etc. Cunt doesn't really bother me, but the way he said it was very aggressive and angry. After that, he decided to argue with me about sports and politics and berate me for my choices in those areas. No need for a second date after that. Experience 15. The first 2 hours were me talking at him. I asked him to start a conversation twice. The first time he talked about the hot weather, it was July in the Midwest, no-ish dude, and the second time he looked at me like a deer in the headlights and just stammered that he couldn't. I told myself that there was no way I was going to not give him a second chance. His nervousness also meant that our interactions meant something to him. I was upfront and honest. I told him that I saw he was very nervous and that I wanted to continue to see him so that he could feel more comfortable with me enough to have a decent conversation. When we decided to commit to each other, I kept him informed about our progress. I would occasionally tell him that if someone forced me to hypothetically decide between spending the rest of me with him that instant, I would have to say no because I couldn't say for sure that we would get along, but that I was so excited to see where our relationship went because our conversations were improving vastly with each interaction. We've been together for 8 years now. He still is the most self-conscious person I've ever met when it comes to speaking with people he doesn't know. He speaks so much around me now that I have to ask him to hush sometimes. He is the single sweetest, kind-hearted, honest, considerate, supportive, wonderful person I've ever met, and I thank my lucky stars that the other women brushed him off meant he was available for me. His confidence has also come a long way too. I get to see all the progress he's made and him becoming more comfortable in his own skin. I am so proud of him. The moral of the story: I'm not saying that anyone is wrong for who they date and who they don't. And if you get a creeper vibe from someone, do not continue to see them. I am just saying that if you take time to crack at the surface of a stone, you may find a rare gem inside. Yes, he's still quiet around people he doesn't know, but I talk enough for the both of us and he's content to shine the spotlight on me. Edit: words are hard. Thank you for my first award, kind stranger. Edit 2: now I have 4 awards. Thank you so much, guys. I'm flattered and honored. Experience 16. Nothing obvious or overt, but from the minute we sat down to eat, the hair on the back of my neck stood up and I felt unsafe. He was polite, listened, and very polished, but could not shake that feeling. I drove to the restaurant to meet, so he did not know where I lived. After dinner, he asked for another date, and I just said no, I don't think we are a good match. Gave him money to pay for my half and said goodbye. When I got to the door, turned around, and he was staring at me with an expression I never hoped to see again. I ran to my car, moved it to another spot, and waited until he left before I left so he could not follow. The restaurant was on an isolated road, so that was safer than having him catch up to me. Found out that about a year later he was sent to prison for the assault and R-word of 2 different women. It happened on the first date. Never used a dating site again. Experience 17. It was my first date. I was 17, working as an office assistant's helper. The guy, 20, also worked there. I don't remember what his job title was. He asked me to the drive-in movies. He came to the house and met my mom. Did the whole song and danced to her about taking good care of me, get me home on time, blah blah blah, all that crap. I was still nervous though, so I arranged with 2 friends to go to the same movie in their car. My date didn't know. They parked 3 cars down from us. After we parked, the guy told me to relax, he just wanted company for the movie, and he respected me. So, I'm thinking cool. The movie started. I don't think the opening credits had finished and he was all over me. It was like he grew 4 extra arms in seconds. I push him off me and say WTF. He apologized and said he was sorry. He thought I'd like it and he couldn't help himself because I was so cute, whatever. I told him I didn't like it and to keep his hands to himself. I get maybe 2 drinks of my soda down and he tries again. Now I'm pissed. I get out of the car, throw my drink at him, and walk off. I go to my friend's car and get in. The guy didn't see where I went because he was dealing with dripping soda on him and his car. My friends and I left. The following Monday at work was really awkward and he avoided me like the plague. This is why to this day I've never again dated anyone I've worked with. Experience 20. While we were having lunch, we ran into some friend of hers I didn't know and he stopped to say hi, and their brief conversation somehow brought up that she owed the guy a meal because he'd paid for their last lunch together, so she offered to pay for his lunch to square it away and he agreed. He ordered something to go, and they told the waitress she'd pay for it. They both said their goodbyes, and the guy left us alone to go wait for his lunch at some other table. So far so good. Though their conversation was a bit strange, it did seem like it came up organically, it didn't needlessly drag on, and the guy was nice at all times and also polite enough to make himself scarce as soon as possible instead of inserting himself into our lunch date with the excuse that he was waiting for his food. So, we continued our conversation, and everything seemed fine until sometime later, after the friend had already left and it was time to settle our check. I realized this girl obviously expected me to pay for the whole thing, including the lunch she offered to pay for her friend as a way to pay him back for the favor he did her. Now, even if the friend hadn't ordered a pretty pricey meal that cost more than the rest of our check put together, and he had done exactly that, it didn't sit well with me how she had shamelessly decided to pay him back with my money in what seemed like a deliberate scam. So, I paid for the whole thing in order to avoid making a scene, but later brought it up and told her that it wasn't cool. She made it clear that she saw nothing wrong with it and said I was being cheap and childish, so I thanked her for her honesty and told her we were done and I wasn't going to be calling her again. She tried to argue that I was overreacting, but I held firm and blocked her a couple of days later because she insisted on texting me to convince me that I was wrong and we should go out again. Some people really live in an alternate dimension. Experience 21. I matched with a girl on Tinder, and we decided on drinks downtown and a walk around a popular park to chat. Last minute she messaged me to meet her at her place instead of the restaurant that was like 3 minutes from my subway stop. Fine, I have to get off the subway and walk 20 minutes in the opposite direction of the restaurant, but I'm a nice guy, so whatever. I show up at her place and she invites me in as she needs to finish getting ready. I sit on the edge of her bed as she gets ready, and all I can hear is people having intercourse through the walls. She tells me it's her roommate and her new boyfriend like it's totally casual. She then asked me if I wanted to compete with them to make her roommate jealous. I said no cause politely and said I was starving and wanted to go eat. I didn't tell her I wasn't expecting any action and didn't have protection. We walk to the restaurant and she proceeds to talk about all her exes and how they ruined their relationships. Whatever, I can deal with it. Who hasn't complained about an ex? Right? So, dinner actually went pretty well, mostly because I had a few drinks to relax, and it was a chill restaurant. After dinner, she said she was tired and asked if I could walk her home. No problem. I already had a feeling this wasn't going anywhere, so I was excited to leave early. We get back to her place and the roommate is in the kitchen getting drinks and she straight up calls her a hoe and tells her to stop smashing her ex so loudly in the next room while she's on a date. That's right, the roommate's boyfriend she was loudly smashing earlier was the ex of the girl I was on a date with. The roommate then made a comment about how I was next, and they started a screaming match. I told her I was going for a smoke so they could hash it out, and the second the door closed behind me I basically jogged like 3 blocks towards the subway to get the hell out of there. I texted her when I got home and said I had fun getting to know her but was not interested as we didn't have much in common. No response. A week later she sent me a nude and asked me to come over. I never thought I'd hear from her again, so I blocked her and that was it. The worst part is the restaurant was a sick Mexican place that she said she frequented, so I never went back out of fear of running into her again, lol.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.